Determining if a sentence is grammatically correct. Basic grammar rules. Subject-verb agreement. The verb must agree with the subject in number, singular or plural. For example, the cat sits on the mat is correct, but the cats sit on the mat is also correct. The cat sits on the mat talks about one cat sitting on the mat. We use the singular form, cat, and the singular form of the verb, sits. The cats sit on the mat talks about more than one cat sitting on the mat. We use the plural form, cats, and the plural form of the verb, sit. Common plural endings. Most nouns add s to become plural book to books. Correct tense. The verb tense should be consistent throughout the sentence and reflect the time of the action. For example, I went to the store yesterday is correct, but I go to the store yesterday is incorrect. The example highlights the difference between past tense and present. I went to the store yesterday uses the past tense of the verb, go, which is, went. This correctly indicates that the action of going to the store happened in the past, specifically yesterday. I go to the store yesterday uses the present tense of the verb, go. This is incorrect because it implies the action is happening right now, which contradicts the time reference, yesterday. Proper punctuation. Use commas, periods, question marks, and other punctuation marks correctly to separate clauses and ideas. Commas. Separate independent clauses. When you have two complete sentences, independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so use a comma before the conjunction. Example. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing. Quote, independent clause, the sun was shining. Conjunction, and, independent clause, the birds were singing. Set off introductory phrases or clauses. If a phrase or clause comes before the main part of the sentence, use a comma to separate it. Example. After a long day at work, I was ready to relax. After a long day at work, I was ready to relax. Quote, phrase, after a long day at work. Clause, I was ready to relax. Quote. Separate items in a list. Use commas to separate items in a list, but don't use a comma before the conjunction, and, in a simple list of two items. Example. I bought apples, oranges, and bananas. Set off non-essential information. Use commas to set off phrases or clauses that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. These phrases can be removed without changing the basic meaning. Example. The book, which I read last week, was very interesting. In the sentence, the book, which I read last week, was very interesting, the phrase, which I read last week, is non-essential to the sentence. This phrase provides additional information about the book but is not crucial to the main message conveyed in the sentence. When we remove the non-essential phrase, the sentence still makes complete sense. The book was very interesting. Quote, including the non-essential phrase adds more detail and context to the sentence but is not necessary for understanding the basic meaning. It is set off by commas to show that it can be removed without affecting the overall structure or clarity of the sentence. Periods. End declarative sentences. Use a period to end a statement that makes a declaration. Example. The cat sat on the mat. Quote. End imperative sentences. Use a period to end a sentence that gives a command or instruction. Example. Close the door. Quote. Separate sentences in a paragraph. Use a period to separate distinct sentences within a paragraph. Question marks. End interrogative sentences. Use a question mark to end a sentence that asks a question. Example. What is your name? Other punctuation marks. Semicolon. Use a semicolon to separate two closely related independent clauses that could stand alone as sentences. Example. The storm raged, the trees swayed violently. Quote, colon. Use a colon to introduce a list, explanation, or quotation. Example. I need to buy the following: milk, eggs, bread, and cheese. Quote, apostrophe. use an apostrophe to form contractions can't, shouldn't, and possessives the dog's bone. Quotation marks. Use quotation marks to enclose direct speech, titles of short works, poems, songs, articles, and words used in a special way. Dash. Use a dash to set off a phrase or clause that interrupts the flow of a sentence, or to indicate an abrupt change in thought. Example: I was about to leave, but then I remembered my keys. Capitalization. Start sentences with a capital letter and capitalize proper nouns, names of people, places, and things. Sentences. Always capitalize the first word of a sentence. Example: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Proper nouns. Capitalize proper nouns, which are specific names of people, places, organizations, and things. People: John Smith, Queen Elizabeth II. Places: New York City, Mount Everest, the Pacific Ocean. Organizations: United Nations, Google, Apple. Things: iPhone, PlayStation 5, Mona Lisa. Word order. The subject typically comes before the verb in English, and the object follows the verb. Remember, even native English speakers make grammatical errors. The most important thing is to try your best, learn from your mistakes, and continue to improve your writing skills.